she had just made history. The first Filipino in the Open era to reach the third round of a Grand Slam. A comeback for the ages. A nation celebrating. And then, just hours later, it all came crashing down. On a court that wasn't even hers. Alex Eala had done everything right. She had avenged her Eastbourne heartbreak. She had silenced Maya Joint in a stunning 3-set comeback. She had booked a showdown with the defending champion, Iga Swiatek. The sea of red, white, and blue was still waving. The chants were still echoing. But Wimbledon doesn't give you time to breathe. Hours after her historic singles triumph, Eala walked back onto the grass for the doubles. Her partner? The same woman she had just beaten in the Birmingham final weeks earlier. The same woman who had been her rival on one court and her ally on another, Nikola Bartůňková. What happened next left fans furious. A first-round exit, a collapse after a strong start, and accusations flying across social media that Bartunkova had cost Eala the match. But was it really her partner's fault? Or was Alex Eala simply running on empty after the most emotional victory of her career? What really happened on that court? And why are fans pointing fingers? Was this a betrayal on the doubles court? Or just the cruel reality of a schedule that wouldn't let her breathe? Talisfair. The roar from Court 3 was unlike anything the All England club had ever heard. A sea of red, white, and blue stretched across the stands. Hundreds of Filipino flags waved in unison. The chants in Tagalog echoed across the grounds, turning the most prestigious tournament in tennis into a celebration of national pride. And at the center of it all stood Alex Eala, a 21-year-old from Quezon City who had just done something no Filipino had ever done before. It was July 2, 2026. The second round of Wimbledon. Eala, the number 29 seed and the first Filipina singles player to be seeded at Wimbledon, had just avenged the most painful defeat of her career. Standing across the net was Maya Joint, the 20-year-old Australian who had stunned the tennis world just 48 hours earlier by defeating 23-time Grand Slam champion Serena Williams on center court. Joint had also broken Eala's heart exactly 1 year earlier in the Eastbourne final, saving 4 championship points to steal the title in a dramatic super tiebreak. The Australian came out firing. She struck 37 winners in all, her initially crisp ball striking, suggesting she had the match on her racket. She broke Eala in the first game and claimed the opening set 6-3. But Eala refused to break. "I really had to dig deep, especially after that first set," Eala would say after the match. "Maya came out on fire, she came out ready, and I was expecting a really good match." And then, something shifted. Eala started playing a more commanding net game, picking out serve and volley combinations that caught Joint off guard. The frustration crept into Joint's game as Eala pushed hard on the rallies and cut out her own errors. The Australian's mistakes began to flow, 41 unforced errors in total. What happened next was pure dominance. Eala reeled off the final 9 games of the match. The second set went 6-2. The third was a stunning 6-0 shutout. In the deciding set, Eala had to break through 6 deuces in both the first and third games to take a commanding 3-0 lead. She continued to dominate the next 2 games, especially the fifth, where she blanked Joint to move within a game of the match. She completed the shutout, denying Joint a single game despite the Australian taking a 40-30 lead in the final game. The final score, 3-6, 6-2, 6-0. 1 hour and 58 minutes of tennis that would be remembered for generations. When the final point landed, the stadium erupted. Filipino flags waved frantically. Tears flowed. Hugs were shared. History had been made. Alex Eala had become the first Filipino in the Open era to reach the third round of a Grand Slam. "It's obviously an amazing thing for me to do that for my country," Eala said. "I really appreciate that I'm able to share this with the nation. But I think first and foremost it makes me super proud because of the work that I've put in." The historic win set up a blockbuster third-round clash against reigning Wimbledon champion, Iga Swiatek. Eala had already beaten Swiatek once before, in the quarterfinals of the 2025 Miami Open, before the Polish star avenged that defeat in Madrid. Now, they would meet again on grass. But the celebrations were barely over when Eala was back on the court. Because Wimbledon doesn't give you time to breathe. The roar from Court 3 was still echoing in her ears. The sea of red, white, and blue was still vivid in her mind. The tears of joy from her historic singles victory had barely dried on her cheeks. And yet, just hours later, Alex Eala was back on the grass. Wimbledon doesn't give you time to breathe. The Filipina sensation, fresh off stamping her spot in round 3 of the singles competition, walked onto the doubles court alongside her Czech partner, Nikola Bartůňková. The two had history. Just weeks earlier they had faced each other in the final of the Birmingham Classic. A match Eala won in 3 sets, rivals on one court, allies on another. Now they were taking on a formidable challenge, the 8th-seeded pair of Jelena Ostapenko and Sofia Kenin. Ostapenko, a 2024 US Open doubles champion, and Kenin, a 2-time doubles quarterfinalist. Former Grand Slam singles champions, both of them. Ostapenko winning the 2017 French Open, Kenin the 2020 Australian Open. Seasoned rivals who had been there before. From the very first point, Eala and Bartunkova looked like they belonged. They came out firing, racing to a commanding 3-0 lead in the opening set. Their chemistry was immediate. Their energy was infectious. The crowd, still buzzing from Eala's historic singles triumph, roared with every point. The first set belonged to them. In just 30 minutes, they had taken the opener 6-3. It looked like Eala might secure her second victory of the day. But Ostapenko and Kenin were not going to go quietly. The 8th seeds adjusted their game. They dug deep. They reminded the young duo that experience matters. In the second set, Eala and Bartunkova took a 2-1 lead, only for their seasoned rivals to catch fire. The Latvian-American pair won 5 of the next 6 games, pounding out a 5-2 lead and forcing a decider. The third set was a nightmare. Ostapenko and Kenin stormed to a 3-0 lead. Eala and Bartunkova managed to win 1 game, but it wasn't enough. The 8th seeds completed the comeback, sweeping the final set 6-1. The final score, 3-6, 6-3, 1-6. 1 hour and 53 minutes of tennis that ended Eala's doubles campaign in the first round. Eala walked off the court with her head held high. She had just played 2 matches in 1 day. A grueling singles comeback followed by a doubles battle against 2 of the most experienced players on tour. But the questions were already starting. Was it fatigue? Was it her partner? Or was it simply the cruel reality of a schedule that wouldn't let her breathe? The 6-3 first set had come easily. Eala and Bartunkova had raced to a commanding 3-0 lead, their chemistry undeniable. The crowd, still buzzing from Eala's historic singles triumph just hours earlier, roared with every point. It looked like Eala might secure her second victory of the day. But tennis has a cruel way of turning triumph into tragedy. The 8th seeds, Jelena Ostapenko and Sofia Kenin, were not going to go quietly. The Latvian-American duo, both former Grand Slam singles champions, adjusted their game. They dug deep. They reminded the young duo that experience matters. In the second set, Eala and Bartunkova took a 2-1 lead, only for Ostapenko and Kenin to catch fire. The seasoned rivals won 5 of the next 6 games, breaking away for a 5-2 advantage. Eala and Bartunkova managed to win 1 more game, but it wasn't enough. The 8th seeds closed out the set to force a decider. The third set was a nightmare. Ostapenko and Kenin stormed to a 3-0 lead. Eala and Bartunkova managed to win just 1 game, but the Latvian-American duo proved too strong. They completed the comeback, sweeping the final set 6-1. The final score, 3-6, 6-3, 1-6. 1 hour and 53 minutes of tennis that ended Eala's doubles campaign in the first round. Fresh off her singles breakthrough a few hours ago, Eala couldn't carry that momentum into the doubles as she and Bartunkova ran out of gas against their seasoned rivals. One report noted, the collapse had been dramatic. A first-set dominance that dissolved into a second-set unraveling and a third-set surrender. And as Eala walked off the court, the questions were already starting. Was it fatigue? Was it her partner? Or was it simply the cruel reality of a schedule that wouldn't let her breathe? The match had barely ended when the accusations began. Within minutes of the final point, social media platforms flooded with reactions from Filipino fans. The sea of red, white, and blue that had cheered Eala to victory just hours earlier was now a storm of frustration and finger-pointing. Some fans blamed Bartunkova for the collapse. She completely lost intensity in the second set, one comment read. Eala carried her through the first set and then she fell apart. Others pointed to Eala's grueling schedule. She played a 3-set singles match just hours earlier. Another fan wrote, "How can anyone expect her to have the energy for doubles against 2 Grand Slam champions?" The debate raged across Twitter, Facebook, and tennis forums. Some called it a betrayal. Others called it bad luck. But beneath the anger, there was a deeper frustration. A sense that history had been stolen from them. The numbers told a story of what might have been. Eala and Bartunkova had taken a 2-1 lead in the second set before Ostapenko and Kenin caught fire, winning 5 of the next 6 games to force a decider. The Filipino-Czech duo had started strong, securing a 3-0 lead in the first set, but their seasoned opponents proved too strong, completing the comeback after an hour and 53 minutes. The defeat ended Eala's doubles campaign in the opening round. The 8th-seeded pair had simply been too experienced. But for fans who had watched Eala make history just hours earlier, the loss felt like a cruel twist of fate. And as the accusations continued to fly, one question hung in the air. Had Bartunkova really cost Eala the match, or was this simply the price of chasing history on 2 fronts? The accusations flew fast and furious. Social media was ablaze with fans pointing fingers at Nikola Bartůňková. But was she really to blame? Or was there a far simpler explanation that no one wanted to admit? The numbers told a story of their own. Eala and Bartunkova had started strong, racing to a 3-0 lead in the first set. Their chemistry was undeniable. The crowd roared with every point. But Ostapenko and Kenin, the 8th seeds and a 2024 US Open doubles champion in Ostapenko, were not going to go quietly. They adjusted, they dug deep, and they reminded the young duo that experience matters. The momentum shift was dramatic. In the second set, Eala and Bartunkova took a 2-1 lead only for their seasoned rivals to catch fire and win 5 of the next 6 games. The third set was a nightmare, a 3-0 start for Ostapenko and Kenin before Eala and Bartunkova managed just 1 game. The final score, 6-3, 3-6, 1-6. 1 hour and 53 minutes of tennis that ended Eala's doubles campaign in the first round. But here's the truth that the accusations obscured. Eala had played 2 matches in 1 day. A grueling 3-set singles comeback that pushed her to the limit. And then, just hours later, she was back on the grass against 2 of the most experienced players on tour. Fresh off her singles breakthrough a few hours ago, Eala couldn't carry that momentum into the doubles as she and Bartunkova ran out of gas against their seasoned rivals. It wasn't about betrayal. It wasn't about a partner letting her down. It was about the cruel reality of a schedule that wouldn't let her breathe. Eala had given everything she had, and then some. And the finger pointing? That was the sound of a nation that had tasted history and couldn't bear to let it go. She had just made history, the first Filipino in the Open era to reach the 3rd round of a Grand Slam. A comeback for the ages, a nation celebrating. And then just hours later, it all came crashing down, on a court that wasn't even hers. Eala had done everything right. She had avenged her Eastbourne heartbreak. She had silenced Maya Joint in a stunning 3-set comeback, 3-6, 6-2, 6-0. She had booked a showdown with the defending champion, Iga Swiatek. The sea of red, white, and blue was still waving. The chants were still echoing. But Wimbledon doesn't give you time to breathe. Hours after her historic singles triumph, Eala walked back onto the grass for the doubles. Her partner? The same woman she had just beaten in the Birmingham final weeks earlier. The same woman who had been her rival on one court and her ally on another. Nikola Bartůňková. What happened next left fans furious. A first-round exit. A collapse after a strong start. And accusations flying across social media that Bartunkova had cost Eala the match. The 8th seeds Jelena Ostapenko and Sofia Kenin proved too strong. The Latvian-American duo, both former Grand Slam singles champions, turned the match around after dropping the first set. The final score, 6-3, 3-6, 1-6. But was it really her partner's fault? Or was Eala simply running on empty after the most emotional victory of her career? Fresh off her singles breakthrough a few hours ago, Eala couldn't carry that momentum into the doubles as she and Bartunkova ran out of gas against their seasoned rivals. The finger-pointing was the sound of a nation that had tasted history and couldn't bear to let it go. Eala had given everything she had, and then some. She had carried the hopes of 115 million people on her shoulders. She had played 2 matches in 1 day. She had made history. The doubles defeat was heartbreaking, but it didn't diminish what she had already achieved. And as she prepared for her 3rd round showdown with Iga Swiatek, one thing was certain. Eala's Wimbledon journey was far from over. Was this a betrayal on the doubles court? Or just the cruel reality of a schedule that wouldn't let her breathe? Talisphere.